But you can't tell these people that what they're fighting for is not just as important to them as it was to those people who fought 50 years ago and that time when they marched. These people still feel like it is that important. And I don't think anyone would be out there in the freezing cold, laying on the concrete and spouting off and saying what they feel in their hearts if it didn't matter to them. So to take that away from them is not fair. It's not the same fight, but it's a serious fight nonetheless. And yes, Reverend Al Sharpton is a very polarizing character. Yes, a lot of what he does is considered very self-serving, but on the flip side, when there is a situation or an instance of injustice, he is there. He does use his voice. He tries to use his voice for good. And so when you have people that are willing to stand up and willing to fight when they see racial profiling, when they see police brutality, and when they see injustices that need to be handled, you can't always say that it's necessarily self-serving. If they're there for the people, they're there for the people.
All right, Crystal, I saw you smiling. What are you smiling at?
I mean, there's just so much of what Vanessa said is just laughable, especially about Al Sharpton. Al Sharpton, if everyone recalls, rushed to judgment in both the Trayvon Martin case as well as what happened with Michael Brown. He incited race riots. He said justice must be served, and his justice was that the white cops needed to be indicted before any investigation was conducted. So that's the Al Sharpton way. Let's go right to the race baiting. Let's go right to the division because it's white on black crime, right? But black young men are being killed with impunity by other young black men every day. And where's the march for those young men? But I also want to go back to something else Vanessa said. Vanessa said that people should protest. But, you know, there's a difference, Vanessa, between people protesting peacefully to raise awareness about what happened with Eric Garner, and if you choose Michael Brown, then, and it's a very stark difference.
Well, I'm going to help you, Crystal. Crystal, I'm going to help you because but you're going to say, I want to say, because I have the point in my head. You're going to, and I want to say it this way. This was in a day when our laws were heinous and needed to change, and civil disobedience was an obligation. You were obliged to be civilly disobedient. Now, what's the law we're trying to change, and why are you being civilly disobedient? Because that's what civil disobedience is based on, an unjust law. So what's the law?
Civil disobedience. I was part of a very peaceful protest, and if people feel like things aren't being, if there is racial profiling, we know in the Eric Garner case that police officer had been reprimanded for racial profiling several times. So there is still that issue, and for most people, and me included, if there is one injustice, that's one too many for me. So that is why I go out in the streets. That's why I'm saying hands up, don't shoot. And that's why I'm in a peaceful protest.
Crystal,
and I don't choose to focus on the looters.
Here's real quick. The real difference is most of the protesters in the streets now have no idea what they're protesting. How is disrupting traffic, disrupting trains at Grand Central Station, lying in the middle of the road just to disrupt things, that is not going to accomplish anything, like Dr. Drew said. And I'll tell you one thing. Eric Garner's death was indeed the result of police brutality. It was heinous. It was disgusting. And you know what I tweeted that night? That not only was protest expected, outrage was demanded in the way that Eric Garner was brutalized and assassinated by those police officers, and Pantelio being the officer number one. So he must be dealt with, in my opinion. That was very different than what happened with Michael Brown, who, as a young man, made bad choices.
But, all right, so Larry, so here's my point. People don't even understand the theory behind civil disobedience anymore. Right. Peaceful civil disobedience was a conscious disobeying of law because the laws sucked. They were terrible. Now, Crystal just threw down a gauntlet that something needs to change in that relationship with that cop and the people he served. Are there laws that we can be disobedient to that would help that change?
Well, you're getting to the crux of what we're talking about here, Dr. Drew. What is the that these people are protesting? During the 60s, we were protesting laws that were racist.
They were Jim Crow laws. They were an abomination. They were a heinous, heinous system that needed to be broken down and disobeyed. We were all obliged to disobey those laws.
We are still seeing those same levels of racism in certain instances.
Well, the racism is different.
And we feel like racial profiling is a real issue here. We cannot skirt around the fact that it's an issue. It's not the same issue, but it's an issue nonetheless, and it needs to be handled. So marching and laying in, it gets our voices heard. We're talking about it right now, and there's a reason for that.